Welcome, everyone, to this Bakerpedia seminar all about smart quality control for the modern bakery. I'm Mark Flurker, your host for today, and I also host the Baked in Science podcast. Look us up whenever you get a chance. This seminar is brought to you by KPM Analytics. KPM Analytics supplies instruments that measure critical quality parameters of incoming ingredients, analyze products during the baking process, and ensure final quality. Their comprehensive range of analyzers are used by food producers throughout their production to improve efficiency, ensure quality, and protect their brand. KPM Analytics is backed by 100 plus years of experience developing advanced products and processes for quality assurance and process control in baked goods manufacturing. If you need any Q&A help, contact kpmanalytics.com. By Q&A, we mean quality assurance. Right? It's also great for troubleshooting. Today, we are joined by Lena Busk-Björn. Lena Busk-Björn has an education in engineering and in food science, specialized in the cereal industry. She works for Chopin Technologies, part of KPM Analytics, since 2014. For more than 9 years, she occupied different positions and now manages the food products and applications team, whose role consists in ensuring the application development and promotion of Chopin products. They provide personalized solutions to customers willing to improve control of their products and processes. Lena's responsibilities also include the standardization of the developed method, working closely with various associations such as ISO, AACC, and ICC. Now, let's dive into quality control as Lena will share a presentation.
Thank you, Mark, for this kind introduction. Let me just share my screen and find the right screen. Let's dive in. So I'm very pleased to be here today and to speak with Bakerpedia about this fascinating topic, because this is really at the core of our preoccupations today. And maybe to start, I would like to make a little exercise. Just imagine a baker from the 1950s stepping into a modern industrial bakery. Let's see mixers the size of my car, dough sheeters that move faster than I can blink. They see production line that are so synchronized that it feels they are choreographed. I mean, the changes that we have seen in the last 100 years or the last 50 years are just drastic. But despite all the shiny technology, they would notice something extremely familiar. The same old question we still struggle with today, which is, how do we make the perfect bread, the perfect final product, the perfect cookie, whatever final product really, how do we make the perfect final product every time? And well, because as production speeds up and expert intuition becomes harder to find, as we will see, that question gets more and more challenging. And that's why today, more than ever, we need to step back and reassess the way we do quality control to make it smarter, to make it more adaptive, to make it more consistent with the reality of the modern bakeries we find today. So this is the topic of my presentation today, and in order to start and not waste any more time, I would like to maybe describe a little bit, and I would like to come back a little bit to the history of flour quality control, because this is not new. This is not new, but this is still recent, because for the longest time, we have been limited to stone milling. And so for the longest time, every final product that we were consuming were coming from whole wheat flour. And it's not on. It's only in the 1879, sorry, that we saw the apparition of the first roller mill in Hungary. And because of those first roller mill, we could increase the production, of course, but also provide white flour to everyone, and not one white flour, many different white flours. And with that came the fact that, okay, maybe there is a white flour that is more specific for a process than for another, for a final product than for another. And thus came the need to control. And thus came the first method to control the flour, starting in 1883 with the Sheldon method to control the protein contents. And then very quickly, additional methods such as the alveograph, the farinograph, the extensograph, or even the amylograph to control the quality of the flour. A little bit later on, we've seen the apparition of the falling number, of a rheofermentometer, and roughly around the same time, the birth of standardization bodies such as cereals and grains or ICC that are dedicated to provide methods, so that if I do an alveograph test here in France and communicating with someone in China also making an alveograph test, we can compare our results. And then later on came what we can call the legacy, meaning improvement of already existing methods, such as in 1970, the glutomatic to automatize the traditional gluten washing method, the hand washing method. In 1980, the birth of the NIR, a true revolution when it comes to speed, great for quantitative measurements. And well, then the birth of the SD-matic in 1990, and one that can be called a true revolution in 2005, the birth of the MixLab, which is an equipment that is dedicated to both protein control and starch control. So as we can see, we have a lot of tools. And first thing is that we can see that most of the tools we use today, farinograph, extensograph, alveograph, falling number, they were all invented almost 100 years ago. That's the first thing. And then we can also see a second thing is that we have many different methods. And today in the world of quality control, we tend to think that if we have one of those methods, we will be good. And we know that's not true. But maybe to illustrate, I like this image. This is the hammer. If you try to screw a screw with a hammer, it will not work very well. And that's a little bit in quality control. If you're using a farinograph, an extensograph, a MixLab, all of that, they are just tools. So if you use them for the wrong purpose, and I will come back to that a little bit later on, it's not efficient. But they are wonderful tools if used to do what they are designed to do. And then something else is that we mentioned it, but the baker challenges are evolving. And in the last 100 years, we have gone from an artisanal know-how, basically what was an industrial bakery at this time was just a gathering of craft bakers. We have gone from an artisanal know-how to strong industrial challenges with a strong automatization of the line of production. I mean, you can go now to a line of production that makes 70,000 buns per hour and meets 3 people on the line. That is crazy to me, and that is great for throughput. That's great for making more product, but those lines, they cannot react the way a master baker is doing to adjust to the quality of the flour, meaning that there is less acceptance for variability. The consistency here of the raw material become critical. And there is something else that makes that consistency really is critical, is that the expertise, the master bakers, you know, those experts, those Jedi master that come into a plant and know just by touching the dough and feeling a little bit that you need to shorten the mixing, or to add a little bit deactivated yeast, or that you need to improve proofing or whatever. Those guys, they are magic. But they are retiring. They are retiring, and this is a tendency that has accelerated since COVID. And the thing is that they are extremely tricky to replace because young people entering the workforce, they don't want to spend 10 plus years building an expertise in a noisy, dusty environment. So this is urgent now to put objective data on master bakers' feeling before they're gone. And then there is something else to consider, something that was maybe true 100 years ago that is not true anymore. And we still have this idea that for a similar final product, then we would need the same flour. If you ask ChatGPT, for instance, to give you what is a good flour for making pan bread, ChatGPT will tell you very confidently that you need protein content between 11 and 13%, that you need a gluten that is balanced, whatever it means, that you need a water absorption between this and that, and so on. All right, so that's simple enough. I know what I need to make a pan bread. But what if I'm making a pan bread in, I don't know, in a very hot country where temperatures are 40 degrees all year long, or if I'm doing it in a very cold country in Canada? Do I really need the same flour? And if I don't have exactly the same process, and if I don't use the same additives, and if I don't have the same formulation? But the thing is that those recommendations, they are everywhere. In the literature, in articles, like here, for instance, you can find recommendation of what is a good W value for pizza. In baking business, serious journal, you can find recommendations such as for making a pan bread, you need a flour protein content between 10 and 11.5. That's not even the same thing as ChatGPT is saying, but whatever. This is what they say. And then you have something else. You have what we call the flour experts or the flour gurus. The one that comes, the consultants, or the one that comes on stage at big conferences and tell you, oh yeah, for making this type of flour, you need that. And don't get me wrong, you have tendencies. Of course, we know that we need stronger flour for making pan bread that we need for making a cookie or a biscuit. Everyone knows that. So we have big tendencies. But besides that, inside of one class of product, this kind of advice, these kind of generalities do not integrate the many differences between baking plants. They do not correspond to your reality specifically. The result of all of that, what history means to us, is that we have an increasingly complicated situation for manufacturers. And we are not telling that, manufacturers are telling that. We made a survey a couple of years ago on LinkedIn, and we asked operative baker to answer a simple question. Does it happen that flour, despite meeting all laboratory specifications, still gives issues during baking? And the answer was yes. 96% of the time. And for some of them, it was very often, more than 1 every 10th delivery. That caused for huge financial loss because you have to discard the final product that are not okay, because you have to stop the line and to clean everything, because you have to spend time in R&D to correct. So all of that is a tricky situation. And all of that, again, is coming from the history, is coming from the fact that the devices and the method we rely on for quality control were invented 100 years ago, when the wheat quality and when the processes were completely different. Also, those tools, they were not designed for bakers to select the best flour for their specific process. They were designed for millers to ensure consistency. And plus, at this time, the industry could count on master bakers able to correct if the flour was not 100% fitting their needs. And again, this expertise today is disappearing. Plus, as we have mentioned, the bakery industry is becoming more complex every day, and it's not just about automatization. Of course, automatization plays a major role, but you also have today need to diversify, to use much more different ingredients. Like you go to the supermarket today and you go to the pan bread section and you will find maybe 10, 20 different ones. organic, whole wheat, keto, gluten-free, and so on. And all of that requires different ingredients, enzymes. Enzymes didn't really exist until the 50s, or were not used at least. And the cherry on the cake is that the final consumers are getting more and more demanding. So us, we are getting more and more demanding. And that's normal. But more than demanding, we are also getting more and more visible. If I buy a pack of biscuits, if I bought a pack of biscuits 50 years ago and all the biscuits were broken inside, I could maybe write a letter to the company asking for a refund or complaining. And maybe someone was reading this letter. Today, I can take a picture, put it on social media, and I will find dozens of people to agree with me. And I can make a big mess. I will not make a big mess because I have something like 36 followers, but the idea there is that we can be visible. And that is tricky for manufacturers. So with this context in mind, the logical decision would be to change, would be to adjust. But this is not so easy because there is a natural resistance to change. But here we need to be careful because there is many people who do not want to change just because they don't want to understand that the world is changing, that do not want to get out of their comfort zone, because we understand doing the same thing every day is comforting. It's routine. And then you have all the people who say that's okay, do not change because that serves their interests, just like the flower consultant or flower experts I was talking about. The problem is, if you change nothing, then nothing changes. And still, we will have 96% of the baker unsatisfied. So the good news is that we can change, and that is not so complicated to change. We just need to maybe change the way we see things. First, we need to understand the challenge before proposing a solution. Maybe what we are trying to solve with our old farinograph cannot be solved with our old farinograph because the problem cannot be seen with a farinograph, not because the farinograph is a bad instrument. It's a very good instrument, but focused on a small piece of the puzzle. We need to stay open to innovation, to not reject new solutions, and to not try to always rely them to all solutions. We have launched in 2005 a fantastic instrument, the MixerLab, that gives fantastic information about the quality of the flour, very complete information. And yet, one of the first questions we have when we present the MixerLab is, how can I relate the MixerLab data to something else? Farinograph, extensograph, alveograph. Why would you want to do that? You have the opportunity to see something different that can bring an improvement. Then we need to, too often we are predicting what will happen. We look at the flour and we predict that the volume will be okay. We predict that the color will be fine. We need to stop doing that because more and more it doesn't work. The baking industry is too complex. So we need to start measuring what is going on objectively. And then finally, we can also, and that's very useful, think outside of the box because that brings new opportunities. So I would just like to try and illustrate those principles with a few practical examples, very short. First example is about, remember the hammer? It's about combining information to get a clearer picture. Again, each instrument that exists in the world gives you a part of the answer, a piece of the puzzle, not the entire puzzle. We have been trying to design an instrument that would give you all the information of the world, and honestly, we have failed. Right now, it doesn't exist. So we have to combine this information. If not, we might miss something. Just like here. Here we have two very different flours. They are both within the specifications of the baker. as seen with protein content and folding number, ash content and damaged starch, and also farinograph results. Very similar flours according to all those methods. Great, so the flour should be working the same in production. But it's not the case. It's not the case. We have one, well, for which the total score is different and the volume is lower. And so definitely those two final products are not the same, and most probably this one would be rejected. How to avoid that? By combining information. And here, if we are staying open to innovation, to use new technologies, we can see very clearly with the Rio fermentometer, with the Rio F4, which analyzes the proofing properties, that the faulty flour stopped producing gas after 2 hours and therefore is losing in volume. And that can be seen very clearly with the final product. And we can also see with the mix lab, according to what is going on with the starch, that, well, we have less gelatinization, we have overall a lower gel thickness. And that can be associated to a lower bread volume. And still nothing was visible in the first part of the curve, which gives you roughly the same information as the farinograph. So that is confirmed. You just need here more information to be able to discriminate and to avoid letting a faulty flour entering your plants. And the second example, which is about stop predicting. Stop guessing what will happen. Start knowing by putting objective numbers on your process. And we can do that at many different points of the baking process. As KPM, we have the chance to not only provide rheological solution, but also vision inspection solution that can objectively measure the quality of the final product and the process performance. And this is key because not only that gives you a real number about how your process is failing or is doing, but that tells you the cause, because this is not the same corrective action to take if the product is rejected because, I don't know, the sesame seeds are not well distributed, or if because the volume is not okay. You are not looking at the same moment in the process. And those vision inspection systems can also be connected with specific rejection mechanisms that can be tailored to each of the final product, again, to avoid letting a faulty final product go to the supermarket shelves and go to the final consumers and risk to have someone going to social media and say, oh, this pan bread is not well because of whatever. But then, okay, so here, this is the final product. Final product, when it is done, you cannot do anything. Best thing is to know beforehand. And beforehand, well, you can know how your dough is doing at different steps of the plants by taking the dough and placing it into the mixer lab. We have just launched the Mixer Lab 300, which is the perfect tool for analyzing dough. And by doing that, we fill the gap between the flour and the final product. We have the information of the dough with all these different ingredients working together, interacting together in the plant system. And so we can take this dough and have a direct and instantaneous reading of its consistency. Put numbers on the master baker's expertise that touches the dough and says, oh yeah, that's okay. Now we know what it means, what it is, how much is it okay. And then finally, you can, again, better select your flours and build specification based on what is good for you. Not based on literature, not based on what a consultant is saying, just based on your observation of the process. And it's quite easy to do. So I just want to share a real life example, something that we have been working on with a donut manufacturer based in the UK. So this manufacturer had a real problem. He knew it was coming from the consistency of the dough, and he wanted to put data on that. So what we have done here is to sample the dough right after the mixing step, so as soon as possible in the process, and introduce it into the mix lab. And what we can see is that in not more than 2 minutes, so very quickly, we can have a reading of the consistency. And we can see that all the faulty dough, all the ones that are giving a final product that are not conform, are much higher in consistency than the good dough. And by doing that, you can set up a target that is objective. Here we know that a good dough will be between 0.69 and 0.8 Newton meter after 2 minutes. Perfect. This, everyone can read that, even the most inexperienced operator. And well, of course, it can be very, very quick. Final example is to maybe get out of the box, explore new possibilities by getting out of the standard measurement. If you think about it, there is two ways of using laboratory tools. Most people will analyze samples, flours, according to the standard method, the one that is documented at AACC level, ISO level, ICC level. And this is great because it's recognized and accepted by everybody, and that we have a fidelity data, and that's perfect for comparing and communicating. But it is also why some people think that flour quality control equipment are not representative of the reality, because they are not working in ideal condition. They are not working in the conditions that are the one applied in the process. If you take the example of the Alveol graph was designed 100 years ago on weights that were completely different, way weaker. Because of that, the standard method at constant hydration requires to work at 50% water hydration. This is way too low for some of the weights that we are seeing today. That limits the research benefits. Good news is that we can change. We can adjust. We can customize the method. By customizing the method, by bringing it closer to the reality, no one prevents you to use the Alveol graph at 60% or at adapted hydration, which is also a standard right now. But my point is that working according to customized method allows to recreate the best testing condition, the one that are the closest as possible as your process, that puts R&D in the best condition to find new things, to take advantage of this new information. The only downside is that it requires a little bit of work. It requires a little bit of knowledge. And this is where you have every interest to work with a good partner. And here, well, please consider us. So yeah, we have to approach traditional one and a dynamic one. And we believe that today the dynamic one can be the base for the standards of tomorrow. Thinking outside of the box opens the way to innovation. What was impossible before with the standard procedure becomes possible right now with adaptation. In KPM, we believe strongly in innovation and adaptation. And because of that, we have been able to do things that were just not possible before. With the Alveol graph, we are now able to analyze whole wheat flour with the Alveol lab, because the Alveol lab opens up the possibility of the test. It's way more versatile than its predecessors. And that opens the door to new things, just like analyzing whole wheat flour, or just like analyzing tritordium. Tritordium is a mix of white barley and durum wheat that has a low content in gluten, that makes the traditional Alveol graph test quite difficult to conduct. By adjusting the protocol, we can have very good results, and we can very efficiently discriminate a good tritordium flour from a bad one. And more recently with the MixLab, as I told you, we have just launched the MixLab 300. This MixLab 300 is perfectly adapted to analyze dough, and any kind of dough, because it comes with a watertight mixing bowl. Because of that, we are now able to work with liquid dough, with batters, such as cake batters. And here, this is just to give an example of a recent work we have been doing. One of the main ingredients, functional ingredient in cake batter is eggs. Question is one egg is the same as another? Maybe not so much. Here we have been tested different eggs and we have different curves. So maybe if you change the egg supplier, you will change also the characteristic of your cake. What was just impossible to see before now becomes measurable. And that is a game changer. And well, we are also working now on sourdough, for instance, very trendy topic, sourdough. And we are able to analyze pure sourdough and see how sourdough is aging. And we can also combine this sourdough within a full dough system and see if the sugar is increasing the proofing capacity, if other things are inhibiting its proofing capacity. So that's really opens up our capacity to change. And all of those protocols that we are designing right now, nothing prevents them to become standard tomorrow. So I will not taking too much time. And in conclusion, I would just like to remember or summarize the modern quality control in which we believe for modern bakeries. First thing is that we need to recognize that baking is complex and that it's extremely complicated to predict what is going to happen. Also because, well, prediction works as a general idea. You can predict in general what will be the result for this specific process. But if you change the process, prediction doesn't work anymore. So nobody can tell you what is good for you. Each process, each formulation is different. What we do believe is that you need to design specifications that are made for you, by you. We need to know the tools, that we're using in quality control, and to know if they are okay to answer a specific objective. If what you want to see, I'm just going to take a simple example. You want to dose an amylase. You want to select the right dosage for an amylase. Here, farinograph will not be helping you because amylase works on the starch functionality. So you need to measure starch functionality to see its effect. It cannot be seen with a farinograph. Also, something I haven't been discussing too much today, but that is important, is that we tend to focus too much on protein. Do not get me wrong, protein is highly functional, protein is very important, but starch accounts for 70% of the flour, and starch is also highly functional. It will impact mixing, water absorption, proofing, final product. It will impact the crumb structure, the shelf life of the final product. It will impact many things. But yet, in our labs, we focus on glutamatic and farinograph and alveograph and extensograph and protein content and this and that, and all of that is about protein. So integrate a little bit of starch in your routine, maybe. And then finally, it's easy to say change everything. It's easier to do it when you have the right business partner supporting you. Someone that is that knows the market and is able to help you get the most of your devices, of your methods. And here we can help because in KPM we have the chance to have a full applications team, people experts in the tools that can change them and adjust them in order to reach your specific objective. And of course, a business partner that is able to help you if anything happens, a good service. And here that's the same. In KPM, we have local service everywhere and we account for a trained distributor everywhere. So we are very lucky in that. So thank you for your attention, and I hope you have questions. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Lena. That is fantastic. If I may just very, very quickly before as the questions are coming in, just to relay from some of my past experiences is, as I'm thinking about what's available today with the Mixolab and other instruments that KPM has, I think of a scenario going back when we were working with a customer to adjust ingredients to the flour for their particular product. And to do this, it took two people an entire day to make one batch of the product to see the results. And we had all of the information, the farinograph, the moisture, ash, protein, and all that stuff. But if we had had equipment like the Mixolab to be able to test the dough in process, to see proofing information in process, and get through the eye, get the volume and size and color measurements right away, we actually could have made multiple batches in one day with zero stress, and it significantly would reduce the overall cost because then probably one person could do it instead of two, right? I mean, these types of things, it's amazing everything that it brings to the table, right?
That's a good question, but no, that's not the case. Your historical data is precious, of course. So here, a very important point is that innovation is not meant to replace what you already have. It's meant to complement it. So the idea is to add data, not to remove some. So your historical data is very valuable. And the thing is that maybe tomorrow you will realize that you don't need them anymore. But no, changing the way you do quality control right now doesn't mean you throw away everything. Okay, so I guess we are talking about the MixLab. So the MixLab 300 is a new equipment that we have just launched, and that is able to, yes, analyze dough that you can take from the production line or from dough that you can make at the lab also. That works very well in this way. And then you have a choice to make, an analytical choice to make. Either you can work with a very short protocol that is dedicated to quality control, and that will just give you the consistency of your dough objectively. Like you take a piece of dough, put it into the MixLab, and we just record the consistency of the dough. This can be done in a matter of minutes, and is really the perfect tool for quality control on the line of production, just like the example I showed about bagels. And then you have also different ways of analyzing your dough. You can apply what we call a full test. A full test also will mix the dough and will measure its consistency, but also will heat up and cool down the dough. And by doing that, we access more information about how the different ingredients react together, how the starch impact the formulation. Really, it's a world full of information. And here it's very tricky to tell you what information is the most important to predict the final product, because it will depend on each final product and each process. Each process has a specific acceptability for flours and will require maybe more precision when it comes to this parameter than this parameter. But another process could be the other way around. The idea of the MixLab is to give as many information as possible. Not all the information. I told you this doesn't exist, one instrument that gives you all the information in the world, but as many information as possible. And then this is a little bit your job to find which parameters are the most relevant. But of course, if you need assistance to do that, we would be more than happy to assist. So contact us to know more about that. Okay, so here this is a little bit the same case as the one I was describing. Parinograph again is a great tool to get the mixing information, water absorption, mixing time, development time, stability, and so on. And this is critical information if you want to control the mixing properties. But what about proofing properties? What about baking properties? What about shaping properties? All of that are as critical as mixing properties when it comes to the impact on the final product. So here, my advice would be to look at the defect. What is going wrong? Is it the volume? Is it the color? Is it something else that can give you an indication about what to look for? And do not hesitate again to contact us, because we could provide with the right tool to discriminate your two flours here.
I may add some analogy to that. You know, if you think about puzzles, you know, if you see a puzzle that is like 10,000 pieces, well, that's going to be a huge job, right? And then you see a puzzle that's like 250 pieces, right? Well, now imagine of those 250 pieces, it has a blue sky in the puzzle, and all you are given is one piece of blue sky, and it's not a corner, and it's not an edge. It's somewhere in the top section middle of that puzzle, that piece of blue sky. can you make the entire puzzle just based on that piece of blue sky? And that's what the Farino graph gives you. It's a full piece of the puzzle, but it's only one piece. And so there's a lot, as Lena is describing, a lot of it we've been doing is guesswork. And so these other instruments help give us more pieces to the puzzle so we can more effectively put the whole thing together.
Absolutely. That's a good question here because that's very specific. So that depends if you want to focus on the wheat tortilla or on the corn tortilla or both. If your first problematic is with wheat tortilla, the entire range of product that we do could fit. And we have done studies showing that, for instance, the alveol graph was a very good tool to set up specification for the diameter of the tortilla. Or that the Mixolab was a very good predictor of the foldability, the rollability of the tortilla. That damaged starch, also as measured with the S-dematic, was a very good indicator of the overall quality of the tortilla. But when it comes to gluten-free products, such as corn tortilla, well, some of the tools that we are using were really not designed for a gluten-free product. So they will just not work. An alveol graph needs to blow a bubble. Blowing a bubble with gluten-free products is just, so far we cannot get it. So here, if you want to focus on both, I would say that the Mixolab is probably our most versatile equipment, and that's clearly the one that will give you the most information in the shortest time. So I would go first with the Mixolab and then move on to other products. But of course, this analysis can be fine-tuned if you share your specific constraints and challenges.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that's the $1 million question. Okay, so first thing I would say, again, it doesn't have to be very complicated. The first thing would be to ask yourself a question: where does my specification come from? Do I know who set them up? When? If you can answer these questions, good for you, because this is really not the case of most bakers that I meet. And most bakers that I meet, if they reply honestly, they will tell you that basically the millers set the specifications, or maybe the specification were set up a very long time ago by who knows who. So challenge your specifications. Ask yourself if they still represent the quality of the flour you need today. And to do that, you just have to observe. You have a new flour coming in. Analyze it with real logical tools, with your tools, with the tools that you have, and then record, watch what is going on in the process. Do you have any problem in production? Do you have any problem with the final product? If the answer is no, then that was a good flour. If you have a problem, then this was a bad flour. Any problem. And just by doing that, by knowing, okay, so this is good and this is bad, then you can look what are the specifications, what are the parameters that you have, which are able to discriminate good from bad. And so to set up efficient specification based on observation. It doesn't have to be complicated. It's just a little bit of method and a little bit of work. And I would say that my best advice here, if you don't really know where to start, please contact us, because we do have the applications and the service resource available to help you in this task.
It's kind of like, if the boat is taking on water, you got to find out where the leaks are, right? And so, where do you have questions? And that's how you help plug those holes, right? And that is the way to address that. And working with somebody like Lena and Arnaud and all the whole team at KPM, they will very quickly help you find those holes, and it saves you a ton of money and headaches.
That's the objective, at least, yes.
Yeah. Well, thank you very much, everyone, for your questions and for joining us today. This has been Bakerpedia's Baker View on quality parameters for smart quality for control in modern bakery live seminar. The seminar will be available on YouTube in probably a few days to a week. If you want to review it, or if you didn't get a chance to be with us live. And our guest today was the very competent and lovely Lena Busk-Björn. And thank you very much, Lena. It was a fantastic seminar. Really enjoyed it, learned a lot, and I hope everybody got as much out of it as I did as well.
Oh, thank you, Mark. This is very nice.
Right. Thank you, everyone. We'll see you in the next one.
Thank you. Bye.